I'd like to call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Autumn, please call the roll.
Mrs. Floyd. Here. Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Miss Hall.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Marmee.
Present.
Mr. Rath.
Here.
Mr. Valletta.
Here.
Mr. Blake.
Here.
Mr. Bubb.
Here.
Mr. Koss.
Here. We have everyone here or present this evening. Next, if you please rise for the invocation by Mr. Johnson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray, and just for a moment, I'll let your own prayers go up, and then I will continue. Lord, we come to you as your servants. Bless us in our deliberations. We thank you for the opportunity to live in a country of freedom and choice. Be with those in need. Be with those who face problems. Be with those who deal with depression, and be with those who have elating experiences. Help us to know your will, and may we ever serve you. In your name, amen.
Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda this evening, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything pertinent to the agenda this evening. Do we have anything? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve our minutes of January 17th, 2017? Motion by Mr. Rath.
Second.
Second by Mr. Frazier. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have 4 reports this evening from standing committees, one from finance, one from service, one from safety, and one from capital improvements. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We also have 2 reports this evening from city officials, one from our auditor, Stephen Johnson, an operating report for period ending January 31st, 2017, and one from our income tax administrator, Barb Jobs, the income tax revenue report for the period ending January 15th, 2017. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Under the communications this evening, we have 2, one from the Ohio Department of Agriculture. Notice that gypsy moth treatment will be conducted in our area in the months of May and June, and one from Columbia Gas. Notice they are going to request to continue the infrastructure replacement program for an additional 5 years that they have been working on. The extension would allow the program to continue to December 31st, 2022. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Next on the agenda this evening, we have comments from citizens. There are 2 places for citizens' comments. One is now, one is after the legislation. This is not a debate with council. This is just an opportunity for you to be heard. Do we have anyone for this first section? If you just please raise your hand. Mr. Raymond? Could you just give us your name and address for the record? Not that we're nosy. We just like that.
You got my name and number. Jim Amor, 647 Evans Street, Newark. I just want to let everybody know we are having our computer recycling event coming up. It's actually going to be March 31st and April 1st, and it's going to be down on South 3rd Street, 123 South 3rd, and we'll take any electronics, anything that has a circuit board, no TVs, no big monitors, and recycle them, refurbish them with the computer club, Licking County Computer Club, or East Central Ohio Technology Users Group, I guess it is. Okay.
All right, thank you.
The dates.
I'm sorry, Jim, could you give us those dates again?
March 31st, April 1st.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we'll move on to ordinances on the second reading, 17-01.
Ordinance 17-01 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Koss, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rath, and Mr. Frazier. An ordinance amending the position classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the Department of Safety, Division of Police by creating the classification of Deputy Police Chief and setting the compensation therefore and abolishing 3 captains' positions.
You've heard the second reading of 17-01. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bubb?
I'll move we adopt ordinance 17-01.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Bubb, second by Mr. Johnson. Do we have any discussion on 17-01?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Bubb?
need to make a motion that we amend this to add the emergency clause. The reason being, this is directly tied to some payouts that are due to some, maybe 1 or 2 retires and some transition in jobs. So it's relevant to the finance piece, and that's why the emergency clause needs added.
Motion to add emergency clause. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on the amendment? The emergency clause, I believe, takes 7 votes, right, Mr. Sasson?
That's correct.
Autumn, please call the roll.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
And Mr. Cost?
Yes.
1701 has been amended. Is there any discussion on the amended version of 17-01? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
And Mr. Cost?
Yes.
1701 as amended passes 10-0. Next we'll go to ordinances on the first reading, 17-03.
Ordinance 17-03 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mr. Johnson, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Public Safety for the City of Newark, Ohio to release the liens previously placed on the property located and known as 244, 247, and 249 Lawrence Street, Newark, Ohio, and all other property maintenance liens placed on property owned by Darrell Ellis prior to December 22nd, 2014.
17-03 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next we go to 17-04.
Ordinance 17-04 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mr. Johnson, an ordinance amending Article 6, General Regulations, Article 7, Non-Conforming Uses, Buildings/Structures, Lots, Article 86, Accessory Structures, Article 88, Fences, Walls, and Similar Structures, Article 115, Public and Private Swimming Pools of the Zoning Code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
17-04 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next we have 17... Next we'll go to resolutions on the second reading, 17-01.
Resolution 17-01 by Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 17-01. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee?
make a motion to adopt 17-01.
Motion to
Second.
adopt by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 17-01? Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
And Mr. Cost?
Yes. 17-01 passes 10-0. Next we have 17-02.
Resolution 17-02 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Johnson, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service of the City of Newark, Ohio to advertise for bids and enter into contract for remittance of funds for the leasing city-owned property to others to use for agricultural purposes.
Close enough. You've heard the second reading of 17-02. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 17-02.
Motion by Mr. Rath, second by Mr. Cost. Is there any discussion on 17-02? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
And Mr. Cost?
Yes. 17-02 passes 10-0. Next, we move on to the resolutions on the first reading, 17-03.
Resolution 17-03 by Mr. Marmee, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rath, Mr. Johnson, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of municipal corporation.
17-03.
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee?
make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on Resolution 17-03.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Marmee?
Yes, we have some termination payouts that we have to expedite to make sure that we get the employees their money.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Autumn, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
Yes.
Two-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt Resolution 17-03.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. Do we have any other discussion on 17-03? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll vote.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
Yes.
17-03 passes 10-0. Next on our first reading, we have 17-04.
Resolution 17-04 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Cost, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Frazier, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to enter into contracts subject to the appropriation of funds for the refurbishment and rehabilitation of one fire apparatus and waiving competitive bidding.
17-04 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next, we have 17-05.
Resolution 17-05 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Johnson, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service of the City of Newark, Ohio to enter into a contract without competitive bidding for the rebuild and reinstallation of one screening unit at the City of Newark wastewater treatment plant.
17-05.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I'd
Rath.
like to make a motion to waive the two-day reading rule on 17-05.
Motion to waive the two-day reading rule by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Frazier. Mr. Rath.
This is a unit that is in dire need of urgent repair. We're waiving the competitive bidding because it's because of proprietary parts that are needed for it. So it only comes from one company.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. I'll please call the roll to waive the two-day reading rule.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
Yes.
Two-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Rath.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 17-05.
Motion by Mr. Rath, second by Mr. Cost. Is there any other discussion on 17-05? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll vote.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
Yes.
It was 17-05, right?
Nope.
That's
It's the one underneath, 1705, wastewater.
the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
Okay, 17-06. Autumn?
Resolution 17-06 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
And 17-06 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. And that concludes our legislation this evening. Thank you for your attention. Next on our agenda, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, this is not a debate with council, but your opportunity to be heard. Do we have anyone? If we do, just please raise your hand. Ma'am?
First of all, I would like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And I am a citizen that I represent the Newark Think Tank. Have anybody heard of the Newark Think Tank?
Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Oh, my name is Callie Rucker, and I reside at 130 Delmar Avenue, Newark, Ohio, 43055.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it seemed like that we have a disconnect with our public servants. My main concern is there's a drug epidemic all over the world. That's my main concern. And I feel, as a member of the Newark Think Tank, I feel that our public service will come and represent and let us know that y'all are interested in what's going on in our community. And like I said before, and I say it again, our community is just as good as we make it. And our students are just as good as we make it. And if we neglect these kids, they have an opportunity to get back at us when they get older. Put you in a nursing home, throw away that key and leave you there. Because these are the kids going to be making a decision for us one of these days, and they're going to be taking care of us. So we have to give them the tools that they need to go out into the universe. You know, respect. Some of our public servants, what are they teaching our kids on TV? They're teaching them violence and hatred right on TV. They see that they're not getting along, and they're steadily falling through the crack every day with overdoses of drugs. Now, is anybody familiar with the drug programs and how our kids are getting inducted? I guess you would say the Hall of Fame, I guess, but that's not a good word. Everybody, I'm quite sure everybody that's here knows somebody that's on drugs or addicted to something. So it's not time to go and sit behind the closed door and pretend it's not happening, because it is. And I was talking to some of the people, the member of the think tank, and I said, wouldn't it be a good idea to get our public service to come? They said, oh no, they're not coming. That's why one of the reasons why I'm up here. I'm challenging you all to come. I want to make him out of a lie, if you know what I mean. This is what he said. He said they have lost confidence in our public service, which is you all up here represent us. It doesn't matter where you live, where you been, or where you going. It's an epidemic out there, so we got to try to do something about it. We can't get behind the closed door, because I think an election is coming up for some of you all. So you got to get out there and prove to us that you all standing behind these kids. Like I said before, cancer don't discriminate, so why should the human flesh? The weather don't discriminate, so why should the human flesh? And the drugs don't discriminate, so why should the human flesh? And like I said, we get there, we pull back. We don't want to be bothered with these people. These people are human beings too, regardless of what path they go down. They are human. Was it autism, was it bipolar, whatever. These are our children. And we got to let them know that we are standing behind them. Like I say, I'm going to do everything I can in 2017 to make myself heard, even if I have to go to D.C. That's just how passionate I is about these things. But like I said, because these are our children. And they are going to be taken care of us one day. They're going to be making choices for us. So we have to give them the tools, the tools that they need, and stop talking about somebody's kid. Because like I said, how can I talk about somebody's kids when I know it's in my family? Sometimes things in your family you didn't know anything about. I have to clean my own backyard up first before I go talk about somebody else. We are all in this together, and so it's time for us to sit and listen, bring these kids together, and not turn your back on them. Because if you got kids, you never know what your own kids are doing. So why we criticizing somebody else's kid? Like I said, you don't know what's in your own family. And we're going to sit there and going to criticize somebody else when you don't know what's in your own family. So we got to cut it out. And the kids imitate just what they see. If they see us driving and talking on the cell phone and doing this, what they do it to, you tell them, why you doing it? They say, well, you do it. You can't tell the kids, nothing. Because like I said, if you do it, what do you expect the kids to do? So these are our kids, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, if you're blessed to have it. So it's time for us to sit out there. It's not going to hurt for nobody to speak to these kids. It's not going to hurt for you to go into the schools and, talk and let the kids know that you're concerned about them. Is that asking too much? Like I said, we're having a meeting this coming Saturday. All you have to do is go online and look up the Newark think tank. It'll tell you all the information where we're going to meet at. I want your voices heard. I don't want people just sitting behind the closed door, just laugh and say, oh, look at that child, look at this and look at that. Like I said before, we're all in this together, and I'm very delicate to what I'm doing. When I make my mind to do something, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do it. So on that note, I thank you all for listening. Y'all have a good afternoon, good evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, where is the meeting?
I have to go online because we look at to have a regular place, and we just go and do. Sometimes we get to church, sometimes we get to the library.
Mr. President, it's at the
just go online.
It's at the Denison Art Space on West Church Street. The address is 23 West Church Street. They have lunch at 11:30, and the meeting starts at noon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And also there's lunch being served from 11:30 to 12. So just come on and eat and talk and have a good time.
Anyone else for this section? Anyone from administration? Honorable All Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a very quick clarification. Ordinance 17-04, which was read tonight, will actually be referred to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. After that public hearing, it'll come back to council for a second public hearing. So there'll be 2 opportunities for public input or council input on that zoning change if anyone is interested in addressing those issues. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you. That's Ordinance 1704.
Correct.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
I will pass tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mrs. Floyd.
Well, I just hope that the county computer system and phone system gets back up, and I'm sure we're hoping that it doesn't come to the city as well. And beyond that, there are a lot of shows coming up at the Midland in the future, and so pay attention and go when you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, I want to commend our safety forces with the outage with the county, with the dispatching, and continuing the high level of service that they continue to perform. I also want to congratulate the Newark boys and girls basketball teams. The boys did have a heartbreaking loss at Pickerington Central away, but the tournament's about ready to start, and so hopefully they both win state this year is what I'm hoping for. Also, the Barnhart family suffered a tragic loss. Their daughter was murdered over the last week, so please keep that family in your thoughts and prayers. Also, I'm going to call a safety committee for committees, and then also I think Callie stepped out, but the drug epidemic is noticeable and it's telling, and when you have young people that continuously lose their lives and you hear the record number of people that are still perishing every weekend, it is a call to action. And when it comes to heroin, meth, cocaine, hardcore drug abuse, there has to be a resolution, and it starts with our families, and it starts with us taking interest in our neighbors. And so I look forward to stopping by on Saturday, and I hope they'll welcome me with open arms. I know Jeremy will probably be down there as well. But we should absolutely be engaged. We should absolutely care about the situation in our community. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Hall.
Thank you, I'll pass.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Johnson.
Well, I could echo what you said. I think that's very well said. I'm going to call a capital improvements committee meeting, and I'm glad that the weather has been like it's been, so it seems like spring is here, but we know it isn't. And we look forward to what's coming. So anyway, with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Marmon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to call a finance committee meeting. There's just a lot of good things going on in our community, and I think the think tank is just one of those things that is occurring, and I appreciate everything that is occurring through that effort. The other thing I just want to mention is those of you that got the opportunity to go to the Groundhog Breakfast, I thought it was a very enjoyable and uplifting conversation about sliders. And I never thought that it would be an interesting conversation about White Castle hamburgers, but he really did a good job of talking about the importance of the family behind that business and what it means to this community and to Ohio in particular and to the county. So it was a very good breakfast, and I always love going to that breakfast. I think that is another demonstration of how the communities just come together. It's a county effort, and I mean it seems to get more and more crowded every year, and people are showing up earlier and earlier. There was a crowded line at 6 o'clock, and normally at 6 o'clock you're fine. But it was, for those of you, I know a lot of you went to it, but I had a good time and enjoyed the conversation. Skip Salone, well deserving of the award that he did get. He's done a lot for Newark, and he talked about his beginnings, and I thought that was very, very humbling, and he was very touched by it, and it was well deserved by him. He's a good guy. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Marmon. Mr. Rapp.
Thank you. I went to the Groundhog Breakfast too, and I'm very appreciative of all those people that showed up at 6 o'clock. It made it much easier for me to get my breakfast quicker at 6:30. With that, I'll call a service committee meeting and pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rapp. Mr. Roletta.
Thank you, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Roletta. Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Rucker did leave, but I'll take any opportunity to applaud our police chief because I think there's momentum within our city about dealing with the drug issues on a mental health and as a patient versus just as a criminal. And I know she's aware of it, but I'm just going to take the opportunity to say that we need to applaud our police chief supporting with the Newark Addiction Recovery Initiative that he's initiated in our community. The volunteers, Colleen and Patty, that work with him to help people, to get them to recovery services when they wake up that day and they've decided that they're done with the drugs and done with the lifestyle that they've had and they're ready to make a change in their life. We need to get those people into recovery. We need to get those people into rehabilitation. And one of the biggest issues in our community right now is detox beds. Getting someone into a situation where they can detox from crystal meth, heroin, whatever their drug of choice may be, but then after they detox, get them into some type of rehabilitation program. Shepherd's Hill is at capacity. I also sit on the board of Behavioral Health Care Partners, and that our services are maxed out. We need more facilities for patients. We need more counselors. But I'm just thankful that in our community, our law enforcement and our mental health professionals are coming together as a group to start addressing these things. And I know state resources are coming into play as well. So I know she's left, but I'm not sure I've had conversations with her before, but just to say publicly, we want to thank our chief and stay behind him with the direction he's taken our department. That'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Bell?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to remind fellow council members just to be careful about all the bizarre emails we get and everything, and watch what you open, because it can be quite the mess. I think we're as responsible as all the city employees to be careful of that. So just wanted to pass that on. Also had the chance to go over to Pickerington Saturday night, and it was very impressive to see a community. I mean, it was 3/4 Newark full. I mean, you felt it was like it was Newark West. So it was really nice to see. It's nice to see the community get behind programs. Schumett and Quackenbush, just phenomenal leaders, and they really need to be recognized for their efforts, because they're big time. So we're lucky to have that. With that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. And Mr. Costa?
They are. They're having a great season. It's something we all be very, very proud of. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Just a few bookkeeping things. Our next committee meeting is a week from today, February 13th at 5:30 here in this room. Our next council meeting will be on Tuesday, the 21st. The city will be closed on Monday, the 20th for President's Day. And with that, thank you for coming. We appreciate your attendance. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Rath. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Same sign. We're adjourned.